What is the worst threat a customer has made to you while at work? I had just started a retail job and was in the back room doing the usual training detail, watching instructional movies, filling things out, etc. Someone working at the register had to take lunch, and since it wasn't that busy they threw me up there for an hour. Running a register is fairly intuitive, so it shouldn't have been a problem. A short, 60-year-old customer comes up and lays down 2 items that were about $0.60 each. I ring them and tell him the total and he becomes visibly angry. He heaves an exasperated sigh and lays into me about how it said they were $0.50 on the shelf. Being both such a minor difference and having little experience with this kind of thing, I just said maybe they were in the wrong spot. They should be correct in the computer. He starts shouting here and says, "You don't care. You think you're big and tall standing over there. Well, I'll hop over there and beat your butt." He then points to a ring on his hand while saying, "See this? It means I'm a world karate champion. I'd kick your butt in a second." Not particularly convinced by his claims and beginning to wish he would indulge his fight the lowly retail employee fantasy, I awkwardly shrugged. After storming out, the next guy in line steps up, points to his ring and says, "You see this? It means I'm married. My wife sent me here." The next guy in line, LeBron James, simply turned around and walked out with his head down. When I worked at a fast food restaurant, the standing policy for any customer who said "I'll have your job" was to quickly slap a job application onto the countertop and ask what size shirt they wear. I only got to do it once. She went from pee to speechless and just walked away. My response was always, "Trust me, you don't want it." I was threatened with being bottled once in work. Funny part is we sell all our alcohol in plastic bottles. Watching someone trying to smash one on a counter and seeing it bounce across the room is, well, a problem solver. I'm gonna bonk, yeah, frick it, forget it. I worked at a sandwich shop in Portland, they have very liberal homeless laws, so a guy set up a spot right next to our shop. It became quickly obvious he was selling drugs. People would stop by to see him, go to our bathroom, then later we'd find needles in the bathroom. We all hated it, but there was nothing we could do. Until one day I came to work and I was told he stole our tip jar money, so if he comes in to tell him to leave and that he wasn't allowed in anymore. I was happy we had a reason to not let him in, but worried that I was the one that had to tell him. He comes in, I tell him. He curses me out then leaves. About an hour later a fellow employee was out smoking when the man approached him, showed him a knife, pointed at me and said he's gonna die tonight. I called the cops and they made him leave the area but didn't arrest him. I closed that night, which was at 4 AM. I then had to walk through an empty downtown Portland to the bus looking around every corner for this guy. Luckily he never showed, but I will never forget that night. Put a blue black light in the bathroom. It deters shooting up. I've had some lovely moments dealing with humans while working the warehouse at Circuit City. My duties usually amounted to putting heavy item A into tiny butt car B. This is grounds for a great many adventures. So, I'm loading a 32 inches TV into the truck bed of a man that I would say almost speaks English. The truck itself is pretty much a ton of rust that's pretty much being held together by the tensile strength of its custom spray paint covering. Job done. TV tied down. The man goes away. 2 hours later, he's hammering at the delivery door, screaming, "Where is Glasses fat man? Where is Glasses fat man?" I'm apparently Glasses fat man. I open the door to see what he wants and am immediately surrounded by the entirety of his family. His 3 sons, who I can see are quite strapping young lads, form around me with crossed arms and glowering expressions. Not touching me, but certainly giving the impression that touching is a very real and imminent thing. About this time my boss notices what's going on and comes over. "Can I help you gentlemen with anything?" he asks. The father stabs a finger in the direction of his hoopty and screeches, "Your man ruined truck." We all file out into the parking lot. Someone, with great care and attention to detail, has apparently taken an instrument and dragged it down the side of the truck. A massive gash was carved down into the rust above the right rear wheel well. He does when carry TV. The man yelled accusingly. My boss looks over at me, clearly trying not to start laughing, and asks, "Is this true?" I shake my head. Not even remotely. The man glares daggers at me and gestures wildly at his conveyance. "You are liar. Ruined truck. You owe truck. It's at this point that my boss gestures over his shoulder with a thumb to the camera at the corner of the loading dock. "Tell you what," he says, "let's go watch the security footage of the incident. Then we'll call the police to get this all sorted out for you." The man visibly pales, snaps something in Spanish, and his family dissolves around me. The sons pile into the truck bed, still sneering at me, and they peel out of the parking lot. My boss claps me on the shoulder and walks back inside. I hesitate a moment longer, watching the Florida breeze jostle the trail of rust flakes, before I shake my head and get back to work. Very poetic ending there. When I was 16 and had only been working in the place as a busboy for maybe a month or two, I had a guy get really mad that I threw away his water when I thought he had been finished with his meal. Gone for 5 minutes from the table in lunch rush. No food left at all. The dude was clenching his fists and smashing crackers onto the table that I had been cleaning. Even after I offered to get him whatever he wanted to apologize. Got him another water, then he threw crackers in my face. Then the manager threw him out. Whole time, red-faced and clenching and unclenching his fists. Much older and bigger than me. Not really any verbal threats, but it still scared the crap out of me. I'm glad my boss had been walking over to prevent it when he did. I doubt he would have done anything, but still, it shook me up. I am always surprised by a person's ability to get ridiculously and irrationally angry over food. I was at a Subway that I used to frequent in high school as a customer. The phone rang, and the girl working answers it. She listens for a bit and says, "Well, you better pack a lunch," and hangs up. I asked what that was all about, and she tells me, "Someone called to tell me they were coming down here to kill me." She laughed and shrugged it off like a bad butt. Working as a bouncer, throwing out an unruly patron. He says, "I heard this place is for sale. Tomorrow I'm going to come back and buy this place, send you on a business trip to Peru, and fire your butt while you're there." Turns out he had the money to do it, but, unfortunately, never followed through. As threats go, that sounds pretty good. When I was a manager of customer service staff, I used to get complaints my way all the time. It's better when you have power though. When a customer threatened my staff, I'd terminate their account. It was a nice, "Sir, $40 a month does not give you license to treat my staff like that. Take your money and go elsewhere." If I were your manager at Six Flags, I'd have done the same thing. "Here's your money for entry back. Now get the heck out of here." People who constantly get away with being a dong see no reason not to keep being a dong. When someone pulls them up and confronts them like this, it makes them think about life a little. Of course, my customers never had guns. If more mid-level managers would act this way, the world would be a better place. Mr. Krizigui, hello Bacoctopus. Do I have any mail today? Me. No. Mr. Krizigui, you don't have any mail today. It doesn't come on Sunday. Mr. Krizigui, that isn't true, and I demand my mail immediately or I will alert the postal inspector, the IRS, and my congressperson, because stealing mail is a federal offense. You will be punished for what you are doing to innocent people. Thief. Thief. You are a freaking thief, and thieves go to prison. Other than being robbed at gunpoint while working in a coffee stand, when I worked at a grocery store, a guy said he was gonna come back with his homies and stick me after I said I wouldn't sell him beer. People can be total dongs. Hahaha, I had a gang of kids that hung out in front of my store who said similar stuff to me when I refused to sell them beer and cigarettes. Saw them smoking a joint. It was like 5 PM. People and their kids were still out, and called the cops on them. Funny how quick hard-butt gangsters start to bawl their eyes out when they get cuffed. When I worked the evening shift at McDonald's as a teenager, there was a guy who came in around 10 PM to 6 AM to do most of the cleaning by himself. But in the few hours before I left, we used to chit-chat. And one day I was kidding him about his favorite football team, the Seattle Seahawks, and he leaned in real close to me and pulled out a freaking knife and told me to never make fun of the Seahawks again. Once, while working as a paralegal, I got these letters promising fire and brimstone, the apocalypse, all manner of stuff right out of Revelations. It was over a bankruptcy of a guy's canoe rental business. The language was just bonkers. He would write these affidavits where he'd enumerate all his claims, then his wife would sign. swearing that it was true. Then he started signing the letters in blood. Then he started smearing them with crap and blood. We had to press charges and have him arrested for sending threatening mail. I forget what the exact charge was. I wouldn't sweat over it. Besides, people at theme parks are weird. Had a lady at Busch Gardens in Tampa walk by me saying I got them transformer titties, and then she proceeded to move her boobs around with her hands. Well, it wasn't a customer who said this. It was one of my students. I asked him to sit up and put his cell phone away. He stood up, started walking toward me in a menacing way, and said, "I am going to split your skull wide open." I just passed my 14th year in retail, so I have a lot of them. One stands out in my mind though. I used to be an assistant manager for a store called Brookstone. They are similar to the Sharper Image, and one of the big draws back then was the Panasonic Shiatsu Massage Lounger. This was one of the most aggressive massage chairs on the market, and at the time there was genuine concern that it could cause a health risk to children and pregnant women. This was during Christmas time, and during the hustle and bustle I briefly stopped to politely remind a young boy that the massage lounger was only for use by customers over the age of 18. I did this about 1,000 times a day and didn't think anything of it. Later I'm bringing customers back at the registers when your standard mouth breather approaches me to the side of the cash wrap and asks me if I told his kid he couldn't use the chair. At this point it seemed casual, so I informed him of the rule, and then explained to him the concern was actually medical in nature, as opposed to us just wanting to protect our $3K massage chair. The guy kind of blinks at me for a minute, and then I see his face start to transform into this gruesome rage comic caricature. The guy draws his arm back and throws a wild haymaker over my left shoulder. I deftly sidestep the punch, and he smashes his fist right into our sturdy old IBM CRT monitor. He yelps back in pain and he's clutching his hand, standing there with this hilarious look of shock like I just kicked his puppy. My manager, who is next to me, snatches up the phone to call mall security and starts screaming out, "Get out." At this point the adrenaline catches up to me and I start laughing. At first I muffled it, but then I just couldn't hold it anymore and burst out in mighty, uproarious laughter. The other customers in line, who have up till now been stunned in silence, start laughing too, and in mere seconds the store is roaring with laughter. The guy steps back up and tells me he'll be waiting for me outside. I couldn't think of anything to say, so I remember just choking out okay between laughs. The dude grabs his kid and flees the store in terror, to cheers and applause from other customers. TLDR. I told a customer his kid shouldn't use our massage chair, and the customer turned into a werewolf and punched out a cash register, likely breaking his hand. That makes me laugh that the man got what's coming to him, but makes me sad that the son saw that. The father probably convinced him the store is in the wrong and it's okay to take a swing at those who pee you off. Worked at a variety store gas station when I was 18. A man pulled up in an old Beta pickup. Can't remember what color it was because it was mostly primer. He leaves his engine running and hits the button to activate the pump, rather than get on the intercom, which dehumanizes my voice. I go outside to tell the man to shut his engine off. He says if I turn her off, she won't start again, not my problem. I thought, if you don't turn it off, you won't get gas. We argue this back and forth for a while, and evidently the meep of the computer demanding my colleague inside authorize the pump was driving her insane. Or she figures I've made the guy see reason. Whatever, she authorizes. The pump goes live. The man grabs the nozzle, brandishes it, then proceeds to soak me in gasoline from head to waist. Oh frick, he's gonna strike a match went through my mind so fast it might have been on wheels. I ran backwards as fast as I could. Disgusted, he hung the pump up, got in his truck, and roared off. I've never been so frightened at work in my life. Back when I was in the army, a friend and I were on our way to pick up our dates at a local college. We were wearing coats and ties. We stopped at EJ, Colvette's, kind of like Target, because we were early, so we were about the only men in the place wearing coats and ties. A middle-aged lady, holding a hat, was trying to get my friend's attention, but he was ignoring her. Finally she stormed over to me to complain about the rude clerk. I listened to her patiently and beckoned for him to come over. I said, Dang it, Larson. This is the final straw. I've had it with customer complaints about you. You're fired. Then I said, if you'll excuse us. Mom, we have some paperwork to take care of. As we left, she was standing there with a stunned look on her face, still holding the hat. I had a lady actually try to climb one of those roll-up cages I had to put down working the rental counter at a roller rink. She previously had spit on me and accused me of stealing her kids. All because we didn't carry half sizes. Accused me of stealing her kids. Lolwood. I worked Windows support at Microsoft in the 90s. When I told a guy that his support agreement expired and we would need to charge him, he flipped his crap and said that McVeigh, he bombed the wrong building. He even repeated it so I could emergency record it. Oh, and I had his name, address and phone number. I worked there back then too. I justice for the jerks to Magic School Bus. Those poor guys supporting that kid's game must have got 10 to 15 calls a week from me. Well, not sure if this counts as a customer since I'm a police officer, but a drunk driver I arrested told me he was going to kill me and my family when he got out. The next day when he bonded out, he asked to talk to me. Said he was sorry because he is a mean drunk. Well, at least he apologized, I guess. It doesn't excuse his actions, but it does suggest he's got a problem rather than he's just purely a dong. Over a simple issue, a very upset customer once said the company you work for is worse than the Holocaust. That one stuck with me. I used to work at a gas station and a customer called the cops on me. It was about an hour before closing time, so I had locked the door and was working out of the window. A car pulls up and a woman gets out. She is having trouble getting her card to swipe at the pump. She walks to the window and explains her card always does this blah blah blah. I turn the pump on and hold on to her card. She pumps 10.61 worth of gas and walks up to the window. I swipe her card. Declined. Swipe again. Declined. I explain her card's been declined and she tells me she deposited a check and it should be in there by Thursday. It was a Tuesday this happened. I asked if she had any other way to pay. She did not. I told her to leave something she would come back for. She left her license. My boss had previously told me that was okay to hold for collateral in situations like this. She leaves and I go about cleaning up, getting ready to lock up for the night. All of a sudden I hear screeching tires and see the girl's car come ripping into the lot. There is a man driving her car and she is in the passenger seat. He jumps out of car and runs up to the window screaming about me not having any right to take her license. I tell him he can have the license if I can have $10.61. He is flipping the frick out. I should also mention he was kind of a big guy and possibly on steroids. I wasn't sure he wouldn't rip the window off the hinges or just walk through the locked door. Anyway, this goes on for a while and he's claiming I am a thief and I tell him his girlfriend is a thief. He threatens to call the cops if I don't give her license back. I tell him go ahead. What this guy doesn't know is that all the cops in the town plus 2 other neighboring towns all get their gas at this station. The boss's nephew is a part-time cop. The manager, his brother, is a retired detective. I was on a first name basis with about every cop in a 20-mile radius. I was later told by one of the responding officers that the call came through as a customer dispute. Well, 8 police cars showed up like I was being robbed. After he ranted on and on about me stealing her license and then me explaining my story, one of the cops explained to him that what she did was theft. They told me I could have her arrested. I told them I just wanted the money for the drawer or something for collateral. The cops got all her information and she left. I ended up closing 40 minutes late that night and my boss laughed when I told him the story the next day. TLDR. Woman leaves driver's license for collateral for gas and crazy boyfriend calls the cops on me demanding I give it back. I knew all the cops, so joke was on him. I'm a contractor and this is relevant. A woman, the worst client we've had, hands down, came up to me and gave me a lower back massage. I told him nicely to stop, backed away, and he proceeded to move to my front, pull me into him and massage some more. Had he not been a client, he would have gotten a knee to the groin. I turned his job over to one of my guys. He was peeved that I wouldn't come back to the property or respond to his calls via email. I told him politely he had to deal with my guy. He's since refused to pay and got it in his head that we were going to trespass and steal back the items we put in that he didn't pay for. He called the police in an apparent effort to make sure this didn't happen and complained that I wouldn't return his calls. The officer called me and after learning my side of the story, said, "Seems like he just wants to deal with who he thinks he can push around." He asked if I wanted to press charges. Client or not, I still probably would have kneed him in the groin or at least said something really nasty. I was actually threatened by a manager from a branch of Papa John's that I was not working at. The store I worked at was making pizzas for some county fair that was going on. We were cutting the pizzas into thinner slices in order to make them last since they were given away for free. At one point the manager who was working at the fair calls me and says that the slices are coming out too big and if I didn't start cutting them right he would come to my store and crap in my face. A few months later the store he worked at burned down and he had to work at my store. A few months after that he became my permanent manager and I hated every minute of it. I didn't work there much longer after that. He was a douche the entire time. Freaking A, what a dong. When I was in college, I worked the help desk. One day, a drunk frat boy called to complain that his keyboard was no longer functional after spilling beer on it. I told him that while I was sorry, there was nothing we could do for him, and that he should try to dry it out but if it still didn't work then he would be responsible for purchasing a replacement. He flew into a rage, telling me that I was worthless, that he would come down and kick my butt, etc. He demanded to know where I was. I gave him the building and room number. I said if it was inconvenient that I could meet him at his dorm, which I had since he gave me at the beginning of the call, with campus police and a copy of the recording of the call. Surprisingly, he never came down to kick my butt. Give me or I'll get you fired. I've had a lot of crappy customer service jobs over the years and this is the only threat that has ever bothered me. In most cases the customer could have had me fired while actually giving them what they wanted would have as well. A fair few years ago I started a job at a busy city center pub that had plenty of office workers in for lunch. I met one of the regulars within half an hour of starting called Johnny, who was the head of debt collections for one of those shifty loan companies who adverts fill up daytime TV. Johnny, who had 6'6", was a rather well-built chap who came to the bar, shoved his way to front and started barking orders at me, whilst already serving someone and being run off my feet. I turned round and gave a curt "you can wait, or go elsewhere" to the shock of my new boss. Johnny laughed, grinned and told me fair enough, and we got on alright after that. A few years later I was managing another bar nearby and late afternoon he was the only person in the place having done a long lunch, and as we were between busy periods I was the only one working. He nips to the toilet and as he does a guy I've already bared for being a suspected pickpocket comes in and of course I tell him to leave. He gets irate, grabs the half-drunken pint from the bar, smashes it and lunges over the bar threatening to slice my face open. At this point Johnny comes back into the bar and sees what's happening, runs in and tackles the guy, gives him a few blows to the head and drags him outside and to the police station round the corner. He returns a few minutes later, calmly sits down and requests another pint. That man drunk for free for some time. Didn't happen to me, but as I was walking from the back room to help at the front desk of my hotel, I heard a guest threaten my supervisor with a decorative lamp. Actual quote, "I am going to hit you with this lamp." To be fair, I had often thought of hitting said supervisor with said lamp. I've actually never been personally threatened at work, but back when I was pregnant with my son, I worked the midnight shift at White Castle and we got quite a lot of crazy customers. One time we got a car in the drive-thru full of females who initially complained that their food wasn't hot enough. It was, so we remade it. They were very loud and rude and we just wanted them to go. After that, they kept asking for additional things, but never all at once. I'd give them what they wanted, wait for them to leave, and when they didn't, I'd ask what they wanted now. Well, after doing this a few times, they tried to say that their car wouldn't start. At this point, I told the manager, who told them they'd have to move the car because they can't block the window. She told them since there's 4 of them, to get out and push the car. At this point, another loudmouthed woman who was inside at the counter waiting for her food starts yelling at us, saying stuff like, "How dare you tell a female to push a car?" And when the manager said it's not her problem and if there's 4 of them, it's not a problem, which seemed to upset her more, the loudmouthed one inside and the ones at the drive-thru window kept yelling, So the manager grabbed the phone and said she'd just call the cops and let them deal with it. Suddenly, the car at the window starts without any problem. Obviously they just wanted to start trouble. And they drive off and the girl at the counter takes off as well. Another time, there was a woman driving a pickup truck with a man in the passenger seat. The whole time they were at the window, the woman was yelling at the guy. Apparently she thought he cheated on her. I thought it was amusing, but I didn't say anything. I handed her the bag of food, then she suddenly yelled "Get the heck out," then opened the passenger side door, shoves the guy out of the truck and slams the door shut and pulls out really fast. When we didn't see the guy out there, we wondered where he went. That's when another employee came in from her smoke break and tells us that the guy's shorts were apparently closed in the door of the truck and the woman had just dragged him along the ground. The guy looked pretty messed up and the woman was out of the truck, still yelling at him. The manager called the police, but apparently the guy didn't want to press charges because no one was arrested and the guy left with his girlfriend. Everyone that was there thought it seemed like the guy was terrified of her. I can't say I blame him. The first story sounds as if the girls in the car were working with the female inside to rob you. You go out to help the females and the one inside steals crap. Not sure what. I'm pretty sure the register would be locked. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.